Hello and welcome back to the Vibrant Health Show. Today we're going to talk all about hair loss and hair thinning, which I get so many questions about. So a lot of women, and it's actually reported that up to 40% of women struggle with hair loss and hair thinning. That's a big deal. That's almost half of women are really concerned about what's going on with their hair. And because we see it, right, every day, we can feel it, we can look at it. It's a constant reminder if it's getting worse or you're struggling with it. And I know it can be really hard emotionally, stress-wise, when you're losing hair and you don't know why. So I want to teach you all about that today. What are the most common causes, how you can start looking for what might be creating your hair loss and your hair thinning, and then some action steps you can take right away to start getting back good quality hair. So let's dive into it. Lots of information today. So 40% of women struggle with hair loss, but what does that look like, right? Because we're supposed to lose some hair. That's normal. What's normal? What's too much? What should you really be concerned about? So the average amount of hair that's normal for hair loss is between 50 and 150 strands of hair per day, which means like if I run my fingers through my hair, a couple of strands are going to come out. When I wash my hair, there's usually a small, amount or clump that comes out in the shower. When I brush my hair, obviously there's hair in the brush. That's normal. That's not hair loss. That's normal hair follicle patterns up to about 150 strands, which I would say is maybe like a coin size amount over the course of the day. If it's more than that and you're finding hair everywhere, there's a ton when you wash your hair. I have some women who have told me early on, like, I avoid washing my hair because I know when I do, it's just so much comes out at once. That is definitely not normal. Those are the things that we want to discuss today and find answers for. And there's lots of different answers. So the hardest part about hair loss is there's probably easily 100 different, if not more, reasons that you could be getting hair loss. But for most women, it's going to boil down to the same 3 to 5. And those are the ones that we're going to go over today. So if you haven't at least started making these changes, it's a great, great place to start. Let's start by talking about hair loss patterns, because the way and places you lose your hair can give you a really good indication of what's going on or what you might want to focus on first. So the biggest difference is if you are just finding like an overall thinning of your hair, like, oh, my ponytail used to be thicker and now it's not, or, I used to just have a whole lot more hair when I did it and it's not as thick anymore. And it's just kind of like an overall thinning. I want to talk about what that means. For women, typically the first thing you'll notice if you're getting quite a bit of hair thinning is that your part starts to get wider. So where male pattern baldness is typically more the receding hairline, and some women get that. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. So if it's more the receding hairline, we're thinking more male pattern baldness, and there's some hormone reasons that go along with that. If you're getting more the wider part, or you're noticing that you're getting more thinning across the top, but the whole way back, that's more our female pattern baldness, versus if you're getting it in clumps. If you can tell, like, hey, I have an area, I have a circle, I can see my scalp under there, it's smooth. If you're losing it in specific areas of your head, typically that is more immune system or autoimmune related. So if you can start to kind of think, oh yeah, I do notice one more than the other, as I talk through some of these causes, you're going to be able to identify where you think you fit more appropriately. So those are the 3 most common ones we see, or just the all over thinning or quality of hair. You might not be losing a ton, or maybe you're losing more than you're comfortable with, but you're like, my hair's breaking. Like, it's not the same texture that it used to be. It doesn't feel healthy. That is a completely different situation as well. And we'll go through all of those. So as you can already see, that right there is a lot, right? Like, everyone might have a different definition of what they call hair loss and hair thinning. And there's going to be different reasons for that. So I'm going to try and hit as many of those reasons as I can today to give you information, but try not to thoroughly overwhelm you, because this topic, we could talk days on things that can cause hair loss. So let's start with the big ones. First off, let me give you a very high level reason why specifically women lose hair. So here's how I describe it. When a woman's body is bombarded with all kinds of things, right? We have physical stress, we have emotional stress, we have toxins, we have inflammation, we're eating bad food, we have other things going on, imbalances in our body. When your internal body is overwhelmed, when you are asking your body to perform a lot of jobs, when you're giving it a lot of stuff to deal with, like you have overgrowth in the gut, you have inflammation, your body is working at such a fast pace all day long, it is going to start dropping things that require energy that you do not need to sustain life, right? Now, we might not love this. We might hate the fact that our hair is falling out or we're gaining weight, but your body is thinking this. It's trying to protect you. It's saying, wait a minute, we will have way too many things going on. I'm trying to keep her alive all day long. You know what? Like, that hair's pretty, but she doesn't really need it. You know where I don't need to send more nutrients to? Her hair. So it just stops making new hair because it needs that energy to do other things. The same thing happens with fat burning, right? If we're too bombarded internally, the body says like, oh, well, the last thing I have energy to do right now is help her lose weight. So we're just going to shut that down right now. And we're going to work on these other more important things. And the same thing happens with sex drive. I hear that from a lot of women. Is like, my hair's falling out. I have no sex drive, no energy, because your brain and your body, no matter what phase of life you're in, even if you're in menopause, your brain's saying, you know what this lady does not need? Sex and a baby, right? Like, she needs to heal. She needs to fix all these things that are going on. That is the last thing that your body feels like you need, even though you, your spouse, your partner, whoever disagrees with your body's choice, it's doing the right thing. And it's so fascinating when you see that and you're like, oh, okay, my body's trying to tell me something. And you know what's really humbling is your body will typically tell you it's unhappy internally with an external symptom, because it knows it's the thing that will bother you the most, right? As a woman, when our hair is falling out, for me, my body always speaks to me through my skin. Psoriasis outbreaks my whole life, acne my whole life, things that I was so embarrassed about, but my body knew, like, I would listen if it would make me look really bad and my skin be really irritated. So potentially what's going on externally with your body is because you haven't listened to the quiet whispers, and now your body's trying to make it really obvious that there are things going on by getting your attention, because you can see those things daily. Tell me if that makes sense. That is the high level understanding that I want you to get. Your external issues are always an internal representation of what's going on inside the body, an external representation of what's going on internally. So with that being said, let's talk first about genetics. Yes, we have typical genetic predispositions. Like, you might say, oh yeah, all my, female on my mom's side lose hair, or, that's typical for my family. Yes, we have genetic predispositions to certain things. However, holistically, we always believe that epigenetics trump genetics, which means your environment and your lifestyle and the choices you make will be the determining factor of whether you turn on your genetic predispositions or you keep them off, right? We have those choices. So even if you have some genetic issues, that doesn't mean that you are doomed to have the exact same thing that your family has had, as long as you make the adaptations and the changes necessary to avoid that. So yes, there's a piece of that, but that doesn't mean you have to have it or have to always have it. So I want to give you that kind of hope and relief today and teach you what things really are linked and cause different types of hair loss. So let's start with one that we know. And I'm going to go through what the newest research says, because for a long time, they really only said it was genetics or it was testosterone. That was decades of hair research. It's like the only two things that make you, and sometimes they would talk about some different vitamins, but that was basically the only two things we ever got. Oh, it's genetic. Sorry about that. Or a testosterone imbalance, which is still true, but now we're learning there's so much more than just those two things. So let's talk about the potential hormone, adrenal, and thyroid reasons why you're losing hair, and how you can start to maybe identify if that's the issue that's going on for you. So when it comes to specifically your adrenal glands, right? We talked a lot. I've done several videos in the past month or two about adrenal glands. If your body is physically and emotionally stressed, you are going to see that externally. They actually did a research study, and this was with medical doctors. They studied the doctors going through their clinical exams, going through their doctorates, these very stressful times, right? There was a very stressful seasons in our lives. And they tested female doctors on their hair follicles and their hair growth patterns during times that they were not going through active testing, through active testing, and then after active testing. And what they noticed is truly their hair follicle ability to make, turn over, and grow new hair slowed down dramatically in times of stress and was much better in times that they were not in the active stress of testing. So whether you're in testing or not, that goes for all of you. If you're in times of active stress, physiologically, like we can actually see that it slows down your body's ability to grow new hair. And then the older hair that's falling out because it's supposed to, that seems much more magnified because all you're doing is losing it and you're not growing back the good stuff. You cannot deny that stress is such a physical impactor in our bodies. So if you have yet to do something to support your adrenal glands, to start your stress management, right? If you are still not doing some type of breath work or meditation or actively trying to move your body and get outside every day, making sure you're managing your stress is still the most important thing I can teach you, because you can take great supplements. You can change your food. You can do all the things we're about to talk about. But if you're in a constant state of stress, some of those things won't work. And that's one of the reasons people will be like, oh, well, I tried, this vitamin, or I tried this shampoo and I didn't get the same results everyone else did. Well, did you take into consideration there's a lot of other factors, right? Those things are great, but they're not going to help if your adrenals are burned out and you're super stressed. So adrenals are a huge, huge piece of the hair loss puzzle. And also your adrenal glands, if you've heard me teach on this before, they are really the regulating factor to your hormones and your thyroid. So you might know you have a thyroid problem, but do you know what your adrenal glands look like? Because just treating the thyroid and forgetting about the adrenals is often the reason why you don't get the benefit you're looking for from a thyroid medication or a thyroid treatment, because it's only one small piece of your puzzle. So if that's you and you're like, I got on thyroid medication or my thyroid's doing better and I'm still noticing this, adrenals could be a really, really big piece of that. And just to talk about the thyroid hair loss for a second, typically thyroid hair loss is more diffuse, and that will also go along with adrenal hair loss, kind of all over the head, more thinning, shrinking of the ponytail size. And when it gets more problematic, you often see different changes of facial hair as well, specifically your eyebrows, the outer 2/3 of your eyebrows. You start to lose that when it's thyroid and adrenal related. That's exactly what happened to me, and they're finally starting to grow back, but the outer 2/3 of your eyebrows get really thin, or you lose that specific hair during my thyroid journey. That was a big thing that happened to me as well. So if you're noticing that there's some changes in your eyebrows as well, really start thinking about potentially adrenals, thyroid, and what that connection looks like. So that's a really typical one for most women, because let's face it, we're stressed, but then there's some other hormone patterns, one of which being testosterone. So for a woman, testosterone is more inflammatory than it is for a man if we have too much of it. And the classic symptoms of a testosterone-related hair loss is hair loss on the head and hair growth other places you don't want it. So that's typically the chin hairs, the facial hair, maybe getting hair on your belly button, hair around the nipples. When you're getting hair growing places you don't want it and falling out places you do want it, that is a really classic kind of testosterone, and it's also called your androgens, which is a type of testosterone. That pattern, when I hear those types of words, I'm thinking, okay, we probably have a testosterone-related issue. Now, the root cause of more of the testosterone-related issues, so if that sounds like your type of hair loss, the main causes of those are inflammation and insulin resistance, specifically insulin resistance. So that same testosterone pattern I just mentioned is also highly linked to PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which creates a lot of those same issues. A lot of times there's skin issues, there's hair growth issues, there's hair loss issues on the head, inability to lose weight, really painful periods, infertility. Those are all things that can also be caused by that same testosterone androgen pattern. But insulin resistance is almost always at the root of why we develop that type of a pattern. So things you'd really want to focus on, if that sounds more like what's going on with you, or if you know some of you have been diagnosed with PCOS or have been diagnosed with an androgen or testosterone issue, you really want to focus on making sure your body is properly managing your blood glucose. So that insulin, that glucose, and leptin, which is another hormone from your brain that helps you burn fat and regulate that insulin, really getting those to function properly is going to help your body be able to eliminate more of those abnormal testosterones. So in that situation, really making sure you're limiting your sugar intake, that you're doing things to really support your digestion and your liver, because your liver has to do a lot of work to clear out the glucose and the triglycerides. So really focusing on those pieces of your puzzle, low sugar intake, really getting great liver function, cleaning out that liver, supporting the liver, doing things like dandelion root tea would be amazing to start really stimulating some liver function. But typically that pattern, you're really thinking, my body's bombarded with sugars or not processing them properly, and there's got to be an inflammatory component to that. So those would be more of your testosterone related ones. And then there are some estrogen dominant ones as well. That's typically more hair loss all over, but you're really feeling like bloated, puffy. There's with estrogens, usually you have painful periods, heavy periods. If you've been diagnosed with endometriosis or fibroids, those are typically estrogen dominant type situations that cause still hair loss, but you don't typically get as much of the other hair growth or the other symptoms that go along with that. And then there's always progesterone deficiency. See, there's so many potential little things that could cause it, but progesterone deficiency is something I see often in women, and that one is still directly tied to stress because progesterone is directly linked to your cortisol and your adrenal glands, which are your stress hormones. So if you are stressed, most women who have adrenal issues also have deficient progesterone because your adrenals will drain up that progesterone. Things you can start thinking of is like, oh, I wonder if that's my issue. Definitely hair loss, but low progesterone causes extreme fatigue. A lot of times it will come with headaches and other skin issues like psoriasis, eczema, those types of things as well. So more external symptoms like that. That was my particular issues. I had very, very low progesterone right through until I was almost 30, which was creating a lot of those external symptoms. So if you have more skin issues, if you have fatigue, headaches at the same time, really investigate potentially that low progesterone and the adrenal issues as far as that hormone piece of the puzzle. But sometimes it's not hormones. Well, let me rephrase that. There's almost always a hormone component, right? Especially if you're having symptoms. It is so rare that I test someone's hormones and they're perfect, right? Every once in a while that happens. But if you're struggling with issues, we are women, we are hormone governed bodies. Normally there is going to be some type of hormone problem. It's just so valuable to know which one is yours. Because if you are somebody who has, let's say, the androgen type of hair loss, but you're maybe taking a supplement or doing something that helps more with a different form of hair loss, you're not going to get the benefit. And that can be really frustrating when you're trying things and it's not working. So figure out what yours are. That way you're choosing the right things. Next, we'll talk about food. Tell me you're following me. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's and losing hair. Yes, thyroid stuff. But even with Hashimoto's, we're going to talk about immune system stuff in just a second. It's typically not just the thyroid piece of the puzzle that creates that type of hair loss. Make sure you're asking me questions in the comments. I'll come back if you're watching the replay and answer these for you guys as well. Okay, let's talk about more environmental causes that you can start to control yourself. So let's talk about food. There is one particular food that has been known, researched, published. If you go and Google hair loss and this specific food, you are going to see tons. I think there's well over 200 published research articles showing that consumption of this food is linked to hair loss. And that food is gluten. And I know you guys get sick of hearing me say this, but if you haven't gone gluten-free yet, today is your day. You want your hair to grow back? Cut it out. We know that the properties and the toxins in gluten can create leaky gut, can create inflammation in the bloodstream, which is one of the things that absolutely will block your body's ability of making new hair or keeping the current hair that you have. And this is research from medical studies. That's how you know it's really a big deal, is even medically, they've researched and looked into this and funded studies, and it has been shown time and time again, consumption of gluten contributes to hair loss, even if you don't have celiac disease, because a lot of people will think you have to be intolerant or you have to have an allergy to it for it to affect you, but that's just not true. Gluten is a toxic substance when we consume it in the body. So if you haven't cut that out yet, absolutely. We also want to make sure we're minimizing foods that are known to be high in toxins. One of the potential environmental causes of hair loss is exposure to metals and heavy metals that our body has a hard time clearing out, particularly mercury. In most of the studies done of women who lose their hair, there are two typical heavy metals that we see come back positive in that situation, and one of them is mercury. Mercury is most often found in large fish. I know a lot of us probably grew up on tuna because it was cheap, it was easy to find, you could make stuff, and we thought it was a healthy food, But now we find out those larger fish that have smooth skin without scales aren't detoxifying a lot of those mercuries. And tuna is something a lot of us had as an early age, most of our lives, and we don't process it well. You might still have mercury toxicity from consumption from 10 or 20 years ago. So just really minimizing it now, making sure that you're really getting no more exposure to that as best as possible, and knowing that moving forward as well. So if you're still consuming fish that are high in mercury load, amalgam fillings, if you have silver fillings in your mouth, that's another place that a lot of people are getting mercury from that they might not realize. And that absolutely contributes to hair loss, as well as aluminum. Those are the two things that always come back on hair analysis for women about hair loss: mercury and aluminum. Most common source that women are getting aluminum from, if you are still using an antiperspirant deodorant that has aluminum in it, it is going directly in your lymph nodes, which gets directly in the bloodstream, which is going to get stuck in the body. So anything, if you read the ingredients on your deodorant, it will say aluminum. They got kind of smart and knew people were looking for that, so they changed it to alum. Sometimes it's just like the first couple of letters. But if you have not switched over to a natural or holistic deodorant, and you do not want it to be an antiperspirant, typically if they're trying to stop you from sweating, that means all of the toxins are just building up in the body. And normally if you have excessive sweating, there's another reason for that, right? We have some of these other imbalances or hormone things going on. So the more you clean up your body, that should lessen itself. But making sure, if you have yet to switch over to a more natural deodorant, get away from the antiperspirants and make sure you're using something that's aluminum and alum free. That is so important. And it's something so simple, right? That really could be contributing to a lot of health issues, including your hair loss. So we want to avoid anything heavy in mercury. Check for the amalgam fillings, the mercury fillings in your mouth, and then making sure we're changing our deodorant, because those things are highly linked to hair loss. I have mercury toxicity. I've gone to IV chelations and no longer have the mercury. If the mercury is gone, then you just want to work on making sure your detox pathways are working properly, right? If once it's gone, you're not actively worried that it's continuing to build, right? But you want to make sure any places that it could have created pressure, like your adrenals or your liver, that those are working well. Also, good question. Okay, and then lastly, we talked about with the testosterone specifically, but even if you do not have an androgen issue, excess consumption of sugar is going to create inflammation, and inflammation is going to create hair loss, right? These are my simplest suggestions when it comes to food. I say them probably every video because they're just good recommendations. Cut the gluten, reduce your sugar intake, and just make sure the quality of foods you're ingesting are as best organic as you can get. I know that's not always fully possible, but avoiding the pesticides and the extra chemicals, because we know bodies that are bombarded with toxins cannot grow the healthy, vibrant, beautiful hair that you want. So making those changes, if you haven't yet, are going to be incredibly important. And then let's talk about the immune system piece of the puzzle. Whether this is autoimmune or not, the immune system is one of the biggest reasons why we get external representations, which includes hair loss, which includes skin issues, which includes acne, psoriasis, eczema, rashes. A lot of times, if you're experiencing both hair loss and other issues, there is some type of infection or overgrowth in the body, right? Your body is pushing something out. It's talking to you. It's telling you there's stuff all over the place. Investigating, you might have a bacterial overgrowth in the gut. There might be a yeast overgrowth in the gut. You might have a chronic virus like Epstein-Barr virus. That was my issue. There could potentially be parasites, right? These are all things that I think are worth investigating, especially if you're having other external symptoms at the same time. Other skin reactions, you want to start thinking, as soon as there's breakouts or anything on your skin, the next question should be, what's my body trying to get rid of? Like, it's trying to push something out. And until I find what that thing is, your body's not going to be able to heal, even if you use the best topical lotions, even if you change all of your, laundry detergents and all of those things, your body is still not healing if there's something internal that it's trying to push out. So if more than just hair, you also have those skin irritations, highly recommend starting with something like a stool sample, check the gut, check for overgrowth and infections, and see if that could be your contributing factor. And then lastly, let's tie it all up and give you guys a couple of action steps. So there are specific vitamin deficiencies that have also been researched over and over again when it comes to hair loss. Now, there are lots of them that could be deficient. And one of the things I always teach my patients is if you have a vitamin deficiency, you still have to find the reason they're deficient, right? So let's say you know you're deficient in B vitamins. Okay, great. We can supplement with that temporarily and get you some relief. But the question has to be, why am I deficient, right? Am I not absorbing it properly? Am I not getting enough? Is there something like an infection that's eating up my B vitamins really quickly? A lot of times adrenal fatigue, when your body is low in energy, it's going to go for a quick energy source, which is your B vitamins. So it's going to eat them up quicker. Any vitamin deficiency that comes back on your blood work or lab tests, the next question is, okay, well, why is that so low, right? So I'm going to teach you these deficiencies. I encourage you, go ahead and supplement with them for the next little bit so you start seeing some external changes and your body starts feeling better. That's fine, but this isn't the only way to fix your hair loss, okay? I want to be very clear about that. One supplement will not change your life. I wish it would. That would be so helpful for everybody, but typically that's just not the only reason things are happening. But they're so beneficial to add high quality nutrients, because part of the problem why we're seeing more of these issues is because our food source is depleted. The minerals and the nutrients in our soil are not the same as they were 100 years ago. So you eating a well-balanced diet is still important, but there does still come a time where we have to supplement with some of the things that we know across the board we're typically deficient in, because the quality of our food, even when it's organic, is still not meeting our nutritional necessities, right? So the list I'm going to give you are my basic things that I feel like are generally pretty important to supplement for most women, especially for hair loss. Number one is if you have a ferritin deficiency. So tell me in the comments, have you ever been checked for your ferritin levels? Most people have at this point, which is great. Ferritin is so important for good quality hair. It is your iron storage. It is the way your body keeps a good kind of reserve of iron to be able to make hair and energy and keep you feeling good. It's important for a lot of different functions, but oftentimes when I test women, they're deficient. Now, ranges are important. The range will go somewhere from about 15 all the way up to about 150. For me, for a woman, bare minimums, we want that about 50. So if you're a 20, a 25, that could still be a huge contributing factor to your hair loss. We want ferritin to be able to build that up. Yes, I can't keep it up without taking a supplement. Okay, so your next question is why, right? Something's eating it up. Whenever I see that, I'm always thinking potential overgrowth infection, proper level of ferritin for hair growth, over 50. Yep, a ferritin of 50 and above will really, really help hair growth. Now, there are some ways you can get it through food, right? Typically, the best foods to take for ferritin or iron in general are going to be your organ meats, which I know not everybody loves to eat them. If you are someone that can eat organ meat, go for it. Add it to stew, eat it. That's going to be your most high quality whole food way of getting ferritin. For those of you who do not like it, I always say I prefer all of my organs in a capsule so I don't have to cook it or eat it. So a good glandular supplement that has a bunch of different, the nutrients from the actual glandular tissues that are chock full of ferritin, also chock full of B vitamins. We'll talk a little bit more about those in just a second. But the glandulars or really eating those organ meats are going to be your best way to get high quality nutrients. You always want to be careful of sourcing, right? Yes, you don't want to get toxic sources. Be really careful with what types you choose, but a good high quality organ meat or glandular is wonderful for ferritin and B vitamins. There are some ferritin in other meat sources and nuts and seeds and those types of things, but typically you have to consume quite a bit of it. If you're already deficient, it takes a lot. And most traditional iron supplementations, most people don't do well with them. If you've ever tried to take an iron supplement or take something that's not a whole food source to elevate your ferritin, a lot of times it causes constipation and upset. It's really hard to absorb in the body. So sometimes your levels don't even change at all. So especially when it comes to ferritin, I much prefer getting it from a whole food source, either eating it or from a glandular supplement. I'm going to put links in the comments here in just a minute of all of the supplements I recommend. I have my favorite glandular supplement that I use that I really, really like. I'll drop that in here as well. But that would be the biggest thing for ferritin. Check your levels, know where they're at. And if they are deficient, absolutely trying to get those back up, but also making sure you're investigating if there's any deeper cause like an infection that's draining that ferritin. The second one's B vitamins. They're important for so many functions. They help with your adrenal glands. They help with stress. They help with thyroid function. And things like stress and inflammation will eat up your B vitamin levels. Now, I'll talk about high ferritin in just a second. Here's the thing with B vitamins. And if you're doing this, I don't want to discourage you, but I feel like it needs to be said because it's so important. If all you're doing to get your B vitamins up is getting a B vitamin injection, or you're taking a synthetic B vitamin, specifically if what you're taking is folic acid, that is a synthetic vitamin. Typically, if you're taking a prescription B vitamin or you're getting an injection, it's folic acid. Most women do not process folic acid. It's the reason you probably have to keep going for them, or your levels don't stay up, or you don't feel very good if you miss one of them because they're not being properly metabolized. So you really want to make sure you're getting high quality. The word you're looking for is methylated B vitamins. And instead of folic acid, you want folate. You're really looking for any of those B vitamins to have the word methyl in them. That means they're actually easily absorbable for the human body, specifically for women and children. So I personally do not take a B vitamin that isn't methylated, and I don't take synthetic B vitamins because long-term they can absolutely create some more imbalance. So B vitamins are great and you can get wonderful benefit, but the quality of them becomes super important. Folate over folic acid, and all the B vitamins, you want to make sure they're in a methyl form. And normally when you flip over your ingredients and you read it, when it tells you the source, somewhere in there you'll see the word methyl. That's how you know you're getting the right quality of that. But I'll also drop a link to where I like my preferred B vitamins to come from. Another one's magnesium. This is pretty popular. I feel like most people that I talk to are taking magnesium, but there's a lot of research and benefit from magnesium. In fact, I'm just now starting to add it to my supplement line because so many people ask me for a good quality. Magnesium has actually been known to help decrease your chance of reactivating chronic infections. It helps with your thyroid function. Your sodium magnesium pumps work together to get good sodium in the body. And there's so many benefits to magnesium, and also with hair growth. The best general all-around magnesium to take is called magnesium glycinate. That's the one that's great for deficiencies. There are several different forms of magnesium. One of these days I'll do another longer teaching video about the benefits of each one. But if you're looking to start with one or a blend, I would just suggest you find one that has magnesium glycinate. Sometimes it's called biglycinate, like the word's a little bit longer. But that's your best general place to start with magnesium to get the full benefit that you're looking for. And then lastly, we are all incredibly deficient in antioxidants. Those are things that are going to help your body. So oxidation in the body is what creates abnormal cell growth. Oxidation in the body is, the best example I have is, you know, when you leave an apple out overnight and it starts to turn brown, it starts to get gunky, that's oxidation. Or the same thing happens with guacamole, right? It starts to get all brown. That's oxidation. That's abnormal cell response because of the exposure to inflammatory stuff and toxins. Well, the same thing happens to our hair, skin, and nails. So if your quality of your hair is changing, if it's brittle and yucky, like that's a good sign that your body doesn't have enough antioxidants to keep things supple and good, including your skin. So making sure you're adding back really good, high quality antioxidants. I'm going to drop a link in here. I have my favorite beauty support that is chock full of the methylated B vitamins and those antioxidants. So you're going to get the benefit not just for hair, but also skin and nails. And it's all in one spot with the right quality of B vitamins and antioxidants. So that combination, it's called Vibrant, is my most favorite if you're looking for kind of that external benefit that has several of those ingredients all together. So I would suggest, if you haven't started supplementation for your hair specifically, a good glandular complex to help with the ferritin, something that has your methylated B vitamins and your antioxidants. And then if you haven't added magnesium, a magnesium source, specifically magnesium glycinate, those would be three beautiful things that you can start with. And I will post links to my favorite ones down here, just so you guys know the things that I use. Now let's end with our action steps. I'm going to have some simple action steps for you today. Choose the ones that you have not done yet. First off, if you haven't ditched gluten, if you haven't reduced your sugars, today's the day. Welcome. Today is the day that those are the two things that you're going to focus on. Nutritionally, that makes such a big difference. you are going to incorporate stress management. I will probably end every video reiterating that, the importance of you managing your stress response, breath work, meditation, journaling, getting outside, doing grounding outside, putting your feet on the earth and allowing yourself to just calm and be in a state of rest. That alone will make a tremendous benefit for your hair, skin, nails, and your entire body. So if you haven't started a stress management technique yet, today is also your day. If you're going to add supplementation, I would start with one of those three. You're either going to help your ferritin, your B vitamins, and your antioxidants, or adding a magnesium. And then if you have any of those stranger hormone patterns that I talked about, if you're getting other hair growth or skin issues or the headaches or the things that go along with it, I highly suggest testing your hormones and your adrenals if you have not yet, because you will then be able to make better decisions on what things you need to do to get the benefit that you are looking for. And then also making sure, if you haven't had a full thyroid panel, investigating any of those other potential internal imbalances that create hair loss. But there are so many different things that could trigger this, right? There are so many causes. Start working on a couple of them. Don't get overwhelmed. Choose a few things to focus on today. When you have a good handle on those, you can add the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. And I also just want to encourage you that hair growth, including, so like for eyebrows, for hair, for all the things, it is not always a fast process. Do not get discouraged. I just had a lady, we had our call last week, and we've been working on her hair. We're going on a year, right? It's been getting better and getting better and getting better, but we've been hitting the hormones. We've been doing the supplementation. She's been incorporating stress management. At first, she just stopped losing it. And then she needed to start growing it. And then that took some time. But finally, the first thing she said when I called today, she said, I put my ponytail in and I couldn't even wrap it the third time anymore because my ponytail's so thick. She's like, this is the best my hair's ever looked. But it wasn't overnight. It wasn't in 30 days, right? Some of you, you'll get super quick, right? One of these things will make a tremendous difference. Some of you, that's going to take a little bit of time. It's taken me years to get my hair and my eyebrows to get back to where I want them. So I understand. I've been there. It's frustrating sometimes, but stay the course. Hair is slow. We have to go through all the hair cycles. You have to grow new ones. It takes some time, but commit, stay the course, keep making the changes because the benefit will pay off. So hope you guys learned something. Lots of information for you guys to come back. This might be one you need to re-listen to because I threw a lot of information at you. I'm going to go ahead and drop any of the links I mentioned in the comments. So check back in a few minutes if you're looking for any of those. Thank you for joining me. And don't forget to set your reminders or check your emails to make sure you catch me live same time next week for another episode of the Vibrant Health Show.